Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to turn your attention now to the screen as we begin this evening's program.
All of you here today are here because you care, because it makes a difference to you that others will do well. You are creating that kind of love that will enable that kind of heroism for the people and the patients who are so desperately depending upon us and you.
We are here today for the purpose of signing the Cancer Act of 1971. And I hope that in the years ahead, that we may look back on this day and this action as being the most significant action taken during this administration.
This was really a landmark legislation that occurred. The National Cancer Act, it set forth this coordinated system all across the country that really led to federal and non-federal systems and partners to battle cancer. And now you have this the U.S. leading this charge across not only our country, but over the continent, over the world, and that's what changed things. It empowered institutions like the National Cancer Institute and brought funding, because we know funding is what changes things.
The National Cancer Act created the hope. The National Cancer Act enabled us to begin to see that tomorrow could be and will be better than today because of the kind of progress that you're experiencing and listening to in this conference.
For those who have cancer and who are looking for success in this field, they at least can have the assurance that everything that can be done by government, everything that can be done by voluntary agencies in this great, powerful, rich country now will be done.
How would you like to be remembered?
I suppose everyone would like to be remembered particularly for his major achievements. We all think of, well, he went to China. He ended the war in Vietnam. He opened relations with the Soviet Union through détente. But in my view, if the cancer initiative, which we began, could save lives, that'd be worth all the rest put together.
We are very grateful to City of Hope, Orange County for serving as title sponsor of the Nixon National Cancer Conference for the second consecutive year. City of Hope, Orange County is the latest jewel in the Doherty-based hospital's nationwide system of cancer treatment centers. In August of 2022, City of Hope, Orange County Lennar Foundation Cancer Center was opened in Irvine, bringing academic medicine, highly specialized cancer care, and phase 1 through 3 clinical trials into the heart of our community. Construction is now underway on Orange County's only specialty cancer hospital, opening in 2025. With us this evening is Robert Stone, CEO of City of Hope, who additionally holds the Helen and Morgan Chu Chief Executive Officer Distinguished Chair. Thanks in large part to Mr. Stone's vision, City of Hope has expanded access to its care, growing from a single site outside of Los Angeles to a clinical network spanning more than 35 locations throughout California and more nationally over the last few years. So thank you, Mr. Stone, for your leadership in this community, and thank you for your personal dedication to this annual conference. It's now my pleasure to welcome the President and CEO of City of Hope, Orange County, another visionary in the cancer care community, who in the last several years has taken Southern California by storm. A good friend and a source of inspiration, Annette Walker. She has earned the national reputation for her industry-changing insights, outstanding leadership, and keen abilities to bring people together to achieve extraordinary results. She considers her leadership at City of Hope, Orange County among her most important roles, as she is developing a comprehensive cancer campus and network of care that is transforming cancer care in Orange County. Please welcome Annette Walker.
Thank you, Jim, and good evening, distinguished guests and colleagues. It's really a privilege to address this particular gathering, some of the finest minds in cancer medicine, as well as people who have benefited from your breakthroughs and your discoveries. You know, City of Hope, as a national leader in cancer research and treatment, is so honored to support this conference. Like all of you, we are working hard to eradicate a disease that will afflict 1 in 3 and will affect 100% of us in our lifetime. So many of you in this room have helped forge a future that is promising, a future bright with hope of what lies ahead. We are making new discoveries and translating these findings into treatments every day. President Nixon would be astounded to know that today we can celebrate 18 million cancer survivors in the United States. As he envisioned, these discoveries are happening at NCI-designated comprehensive cancer centers. And I'd like to take the opportunity to share just a few of those breakthroughs that have happened at City of Hope. Just last week, we revealed that our researchers have discovered an immune cell known to be important in allergy and immune responses that can also attack cancer cells. This discovery could lead to new types of immunotherapy. Thanks to our leading-edge bone marrow transplant program, Paul Edmonds is one of only 5 people in the world who have achieved remission from HIV and leukemia after receiving genetically resistant stem cells in his transplant. You might have seen him riding on the City of Hope Rose Parade float. His story brings hope to many people. And lastly, through a transformational $100 million grant from Peggy and Andrew Chern, City of Hope is creating the first of its kind national integrative oncology program that will bring evidence-based Eastern and Western medicine together to improve outcomes and the quality of life for people with cancer. Yes, we've all made lots of progress, but our job is not done. This year, for the first time, new cancer cases are expected to surpass 2 million. That's 5,500 people a day. But because of the work that you do and that we do, there has never been more hope. At City of Hope, we intend to meet this challenge. Our senior leaders are predicting trends that we will put our efforts behind in 2024. You can learn a little bit more about him as you take a closer look at the gift at your seat. There's a little note inside there. But a few of the examples that are in there include a collective focus on addressing racial disparities in both cancer incidence and outcomes, new technologies for early detection, acceleration of research that focuses on the gut microbiome, as well as policy changes and partnerships that expand access to optimal cancer care. We know that receiving care at an NCI-designated cancer center means better outcomes and more lives saved. But presently, 60% of Medicare Advantage recipients in this country do not have such access. So like the people in the 70s with President Nixon, we've got a lot of work to do. We must advocate for wider access to NCI-designated centers so that their research and their treatment capabilities are available to more people. Thank you for the extraordinary efforts that all of you have already demonstrated, as well as all your colleagues. President Nixon, thank you for your vision that allows those of us in this room and around the world to provide hope where there was no hope. Now, please join me in welcoming one of those individuals, Mark DeSantis, Associate Professor of Finance at Chapman University and a grateful City of Hope patient. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mark DeSantis. I'm a husband, I'm a Chapman University professor, and I'm also a cancer survivor. Life can change in a moment. If you don't believe me, my life changed with a sneeze. It's November 2nd, 2021, a typical Tuesday morning. I'm having coffee with my wife, Nina, before heading to campus. I was having back pain for a few months, but this morning I sneezed, and in an instant, everything changed. The sneeze caused my L2 vertebrae to burst, leading to emergency back surgery. I met City of Hope's Dr. Ting Ting Tan as I lay in a hospital bed with a broken back and spirit. I was 45, a seemingly healthy and active adult who had run a half marathon 5 months earlier, and now I struggled to grasp how my body had failed me. Dr. Tan was compassionate as she told me what was wrong. I had multiple myeloma, a rare blood cancer. Cancer. Everything changes when you hear that word. I pondered some very dark questions while lying in that hospital bed. Will I be able to run again? How will this impact my wife of only 1.5 years? What treatments will I need? And the one I was too scared to ask, am I going to die? But then there was light and hope. Dr. Tan connected me with Dr. Amrita Krishnan, a world-renowned multiple myeloma specialist at City of Hope. Studies have concluded that academic cancer centers and NCI-designated cancer centers provide superior outcomes for their patients. You can't fully appreciate how important the advanced level of care they provide is until you or someone you love needs it. When you're fighting cancer, you want the best of the best on your side, which is what I got with City of Hope and Dr. Krishnan. Dr. Krishnan's work, including defining the role of optimal therapies after stem cell transplant and leading trials of new drugs in myeloma, has led to significant increases in survival for patients with myeloma. She has been instrumental in leading first-in-human trials of groundbreaking drugs for myeloma, leading to FDA approval of 4 of them. There's no one treatment for myeloma, so she recommended an autologous stem cell transplant as part of an integrated course of treatment that gave me the best chance at the best possible outcome, a lengthy remission and a good quality of life. Life can change in a moment. 1 year after undergoing the transplant, instead of being Nina's driver and cheerleader, roles I had filled since my diagnosis, I decided to lace up my shoes and run a race with her. I had no expectations. My goal was simply to finish. Surprisingly, I finished in the top 10 and first in my age group. I was startled by the joy. Small race, but I was startled by the joy that small victory gave me. Myeloma is treatable but not yet curable. It's comforting to know that City of Hope, an NCI-designated comprehensive cancer center, and Dr. Krishnan are in this race with me for the long term. So thank you to everyone here tonight for your commitment to bringing leading-edge cancer research and breakthrough treatments to people like me. Thank you to the Richard Nixon Foundation and City of Hope. And thank you, Dr. Krishnan. She offered me hope when I was at my lowest. Nina and I are very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing your story with us, and keep running those races. We are very grateful to have with us Dr. Doug Lowy, the Principal Deputy Director of the National Cancer Institute, after having served 3 times as acting director, including as recently as just a few months ago. Dr. Lowy is additionally Chief of the Laboratory of Cellular Oncology within the Center for Cancer Research at NCI. His 2 main research areas focus on basic and translational aspects of the human papillomavirus infection and on cancer genes. Dr. Lowy is co-recipient of the National Medal of Technology and Innovation and the Lasker DeBakey Clinical Medical Research Award. In his remarks this evening, we'll explore how cancer research is disseminated from breakthrough all the way through the patient experience. Please welcome Dr. Lowy.
Jim, thanks so much for this kind introduction. As he mentioned, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. I've chosen as my title, Developing Cancer Research Advances and Disseminating Them, because to me, they exemplify two complementary aspects of what I think we need to do. One is, of course, to make more breakthroughs so that patients like Mark DeSantis can benefit from them. But the other thing that we need to do is to try to make sure that those breakthroughs are disseminated as widely as possible. And so those are really my twin themes that I would like to discuss. You've heard about the National Cancer Act and the NCI designated cancer centers. But I want to tell you about something that you may not have heard about that was a direct result of the creation of the National Cancer Act, which is the SEER program. And the SEER program, I assume most of you have never heard of, but this is the program jointly administered by the NCI and the Centers for Disease Control that tells us not just how are we doing today in terms of incidence of cancer and survival of cancer and mortality rates of cancer, but also over time. The SEER program started in 1975, shortly after the National Cancer Act, and as I say, was created by it. And we have, through the SEER database, really the best database in the world for cancer, so we know what is happening. And through SEER Explorer, which is something that anybody in the world can use, with a touch of a couple of buttons, anyone in the world can find out how are we doing in cancers, about 20 different cancers as well as overall. So what's been happening? Cancer mortality rates in the United States have been decreasing at the previously unprecedented rate of more than 2% per year. And at least as important, those advances are not limited to just 2 or 3 cancer types, but the majority of cancers, patients have a better outlook. But this improvement really masks 2 important limitations. First, the outlook for some patients with some cancers has hardly changed over the past 30 years. We can think about pancreatic cancer, glioblastoma, and other cancer types. But second, and this is the second part that I want to talk about, is the improvement in mortality rates has been uneven for different groups, with some populations in the United States benefiting more than others. So I'd like to talk for a few minutes about lung cancer, because I think that lung cancer really exemplifies both of these aspects. Really, lung cancer, through the Surgeon General's reports, Terry, in 1964, and subsequently, tobacco consumption in the United States has gone down substantially, with California really leading the nation in those decreases. And thanks to smoking cessation, the incidence and mortality from lung cancer has gone down substantially, starting in the early 90s for men and a little bit later for women, because they started smoking a little later and they stopped smoking a little bit later than men. But what has really been extraordinary in the last 15 years is that cancer mortality rates have been going down much faster than they used to. And the reason is not because more people have stopped smoking, although they have to some degree, but because of advances in treatment of lung cancer. So that mortality rates for lung cancer really now are very similar to the decreases in mortality rates for melanoma, which is kind of like the poster child for the advances that we have seen. And I will tell you that the advances in lung cancer were seen even before the introduction of immune checkpoint inhibitors were approved for lung cancer. And their approval and their utility in lung cancer has only served to sustain that improvement. Do people die from lung cancer? Of course. It is still our #1 cause of death, both for men and women. And so, of course, we need to do more. But we are making substantial progress. And what I'd like to point out, though, is that that progress has been uneven. My colleagues in the SEER program and I have been looking at what has happened over the last 15 years or so to lung cancer outcomes. And people who live in rural areas are just not benefiting to the same degree from the advances in cancer research for lung cancer treatment as people in urban areas. This is a complicated problem. It's not something that, if we just fix A and B, we can change it. But the recognition that there is this disparity, and it didn't exist 20 years ago. There was no difference in lung cancer mortality rates in urban versus rural areas. Now, it accounts for a very high percentage of the difference in mortality rates between urban and rural populations. Part of it, of course, is access to high quality care. You've heard, for example, the City of Hope and other NCI designated cancer centers are able to do that, but not everyone can come to those centers. And so one of the big challenges that we have is figuring out how to be able to bring those advances to all of our populations, even people who live in non-metropolitan areas. So I think that what I want to say before I finish, I want to talk about two different things. First, what are some of the opportunities? Why are we so excited about what can happen? And I just want to give you one example. There is a gene that gets mutated in the vast majority of pancreatic cancers called RAS. And we have known for 35 years that it is mutated, but it has been very intractable to be able to develop inhibitors. So 2 years ago, there was FDA approval of the first RAS inhibitors, not for a pancreatic cancer, but for lung cancer. Now there are new inhibitors that target the mutation, the most common mutation in pancreatic cancer. They've had excellent results in preclinical studies in mice and things like that, and now in early phase clinical trials for pancreatic cancer. We don't know what the outcome will be, but this to me represents a really important watershed moment, because something that 10 years ago was widely considered to be, quote, undruggable, we now have all kinds of drugs coming into the clinic as different kinds of RAS inhibitors. And I certainly am cautiously optimistic that at least some of them are going to provide benefit. Is that going to be the end of the story? Absolutely not. Because one of the problems that we have seen is that when we use single agent treatment for most kinds of cancers, people may respond initially, but then become resistant. And so my feeling is, which I think is shared by a lot of other people, is that we need to learn from HIV treatment, where initially HIV treatment, they had one antiviral against HIV and resistance developed. But what was figured out was that if you targeted several different abnormalities, you could drastically reduce the likelihood of developing resistance. So I think the future is going to be really combination targeted treatment plus immunotherapy and things that I can't even envision right now. But that's why we are so excited about it. But as I say, the issue is to make things widely available. And what I'd like to talk about as my end is really to focus on the panel discussions for tomorrow. The panel discussions are going to be focused on talking about 4 really important problems. The first 3 are all cutting-edge issues. One, artificial intelligence in oncology. The second, precision medicine in oncology. And the third, the microbiome, because we've seen that there are different responses to the same treatment when people have different kinds of microorganisms in their body. And then the fourth is really about helping patients in their cancer journey if they develop cancer. So my first point is these are all exciting and important and just critical for what we do. But the second point is, please, as we think about these cutting edge and other kinds of approaches, don't just think about how we can help some people, but how can we try to help as many people as possible? So our cancer patients are depending on us, and we can't let them down. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lowy. At this conference last year, I made an exciting announcement that the Richard Nixon Foundation established an award to honor 1 or more visionaries in the cancer care community who are actively living the legacy of the National Cancer Act. I would now like to invite Andy and Ellen and Marlene to join me on stage. Now, please welcome a great inspiration and friend, Marlene Malik, who is Vice Chair and co-founder of Friends of Cancer Research and a member of the Board of Directors of the Richard Nixon Foundation.
Thank you so much. It's inspiring and great to be back in Yorba Linda and here at the Nixon Library for the 3rd Nixon National Cancer Conference. I can vividly remember the first conference back in December 2021. And this was marking the 50th anniversary of President Nixon signing the National Cancer Act of 1971. Now, the National Cancer Act was signed on December 23rd, and President Nixon called it a Christmas gift to America, to the American people. He recognized and was surrounded by representatives from Congress and other citizen organizations. Their concerns and commitment had played a very important role in the legislation and its passage. At the opening of his remarks, he said, "I hope that in the years ahead, that we may look back on this day and this action as being the most important action, significant action taken during this administration." At the conference here in 2021, there was a particularly moving panel with 3 Nobel laureates, Philip Sharp, David Baltimore, and James Allison. They talked about the pivotal role the National Cancer Act of 1971 had played at the beginning of their research careers. And it was also memorable when Dr. Ned Sharpless, just newly appointed to as the director of the National Cancer Institute, he said that the National Cancer Act had created the modern National Cancer Institute. And now, tonight, at the beginning of a new year, it is great pleasure to be here at the opening of the 3rd Nixon National Cancer Conference. And it's a great honor to confer the Richard Nixon Foundation First Andrew von Eschenbach Award, named in honor of our hero, Andy von Eschenbach. And he's a man who truly embodies and exemplifies the unique and extraordinary qualities of mind and spirit that make him a national treasure. Tonight's awardee, Dr. William W. Lee, or as friends call him, Will Lee, is an innovative thinker, a groundbreaking researcher, and a charismatic communicator. As a physician scientist at the Dartmouth Medical School, as Chief Executive Officer, President, and Medical Director of the nonprofit Angiogenesis Foundation, which he co-founded back in, I guess it was 1994, and as a New York Times best-selling author and speaker, Will Lee truly changes lives, prolongs lives, and saves lives. Dr. Lee graduated with honors from Harvard College. He received his medical degree from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, and at the Harvard Medical School, and his internal medicine at the Harvard Medical School's Massachusetts General Hospital. Let's see here. Cancer came home to him when his mother was diagnosed with metastatic endometrial cancer in 2014. And the promise and power of new research and treatments also came home to him when, with immunotherapy and a tiny dose of radiation and the use of molecular nutrition techniques pioneered by Dr. Lee, her immune system defenses wiped out all traces of cancer, bringing her from stage 4 to stage 0, and she's still cancer-free today and thriving. While many innovative researchers foster progress by thinking outside of the box, Will Lee thought of an entirely new box. In fact, a grocery cart. By seeing food as medicine, he has opened new scientific frontiers. His original and seminal work has led to the development of more than 40 new medical treatments. He has impacted care for more than 70 diseases, including cancer, diabetes, blindness, heart disease, and obesity. Will Lee believes that food is something that unites people and brings out their humanity. He says that food is the medicine you can have now and every day. Dr. Lee's book, the New York Times bestseller, Eat to Beat Disease, The New Science of How Your Body Can Heal Itself, describes more than 200 foods that can help prevent, help treat, and help stave off the recurrence of cancer. He dedicated this book to his family, his mentors, and the patients who have inspired him to pull the future of health closer to those who need help today. Pulling the future of health closer to those who need help today is precisely the kind of innovative, important, humane, and visionary goal that marks Dr. William W. Lee. And he is the recipient of the first Andrew von Eschenbach Award, So please welcome to the stage Dr. William Lee. Weighted down by
I'm going to put you between these lovely ladies.
Well, I'd like to thank Marlene Malik, Ellen Siegel, and the Selection Committee and the Richard Nixon Foundation. I'm deeply honored to receive this inaugural Dr. Andrew von Eschenbach Award. The award underscores the principles and values that have always been at the core of my work, which is bringing cutting-edge science into practice so that we can relieve human suffering from disease and save lives in real time. The real time part, I know that this is a value that I share with Andy von Eschenbach, who I'm honored to call a dear friend, a colleague, a compatriot, and an inspiration. Andy's my hero. And like Andy, I'm an impatient person when it comes to medical advances, especially for cancer. Now, from the time I embarked on the journey of my career, starting in 1985, and it began in the laboratory of Dr. Judah Folkman, who was my mentor, I always believed that medical research could be made to deliver on its promise faster and to have a bigger and wider impact if we could focus on common denominators of disease, starting with angiogenesis. And I have to say, my common denominator to approach to disease was very much at odds with the siloed approach to medicine and medical research that to some extent still exists very much today. However, it's turned out to be an even more successful and productive path than I had imagined. Since 1994, the year that I co-founded the Angiogenesis Foundation, we've seen the successful development of more than 40 FDA-approved innovative treatments for cancer, to prevent vision loss, and to heal diabetic wounds and prevent amputation. These breakthroughs are indeed transforming lives globally today. So I need to acknowledge the hundreds of remarkable colleagues, collaborators, and supporters of the Angiogenesis Foundation who have made everything that I've done possible. And now we are looking at other common denominators like the microbiome, like the immune system, and like molecular nutrition, which are shining new light on new paths for future advancers, especially in cancer care. I'm especially honored to be here for the third time at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library for the Nixon National Cancer Conference. This distinguished forum continues President Nixon's legacy, authorizing our nation's war on cancer, and gives us a chance to reflect on the breakthroughs of the past and gives us a chance to envision and dream about the breakthroughs of tomorrow in the conquest of cancer. Thank you for recognizing me with the Dr. von Eschenbach Award.
Congratulations, Will, and thank you for the honor of accepting the award. As we bring this evening to a close, I think it's important to reflect on the privilege of having a cancer conference here at the Nixon Library that honors a man of great vision and great ambition to change the world. And as he put in his own words, of all of his major and wonderful accomplishments, the fact that he initiated and launched this effort through the National Cancer Act that is transforming the lives of millions and millions of people, not only in this country but around the world, is such a fitting tribute to him and to you as well, who have been living that dream. So as we bring the evening to a close in his honor, it's often the case when someone's not with us to always reflect on, well, if they were here, what would they say? If he was here, what would he think? And I believe that if President Nixon was here, he would be very proud tonight. He'd be very proud of the fact that we've gathered together at his place, and we're beginning to see and understand the fruition of his ambition and his dream to change the life of cancer patients. I think he would be very proud of tomorrow, very proud of the fact that we are bringing together new insights and new advances and new breakthroughs that are not only going to build on tomorrow or build on yesterday, but actually create a new tomorrow where that suffering and death that we've seen, not just from cancer, but from all diseases, using cancer as the model, will be something that we can realize in our lifetime. And I think he would be extremely delighted with all of you tonight, because you here tonight are living out his vision that we would come together and do this together as a community. And so we end tonight honoring him and reflecting on the fact that you are in fact the instruments that have made his vision and his ambition come true. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow and engaging in these exciting discussions, and even more importantly, looking forward to what you will carry away from here for the rest of the year in honor of Richard Nixon's contribution, but more importantly, in the service of all those lives that are dependent upon us. Good night, sleep well. We'll see you in the morning.